Have you ever moved into a new job and worried about what the first few months were going to be like? Let's say you've elevated into a new leadership role, and now you're thinking it's time for you to start delivering results. You've got a new team. Maybe some are excited to work with you, and there might be a few who are upset you replaced their favorite boss. Well, we know this: what we do and how we show up matters. And for you as the leader, it is time for you to show up and lead. Well, in this episode, you will get to meet executive coach and leadership expert Liesbeth VanderLinden. We look at some things you can do within the first 100 days to set yourself up for greater success, build more effective teams, and be on a path toward amazing results. And even if you're not in a new leadership role, you have some time to think about how you want to strategically position yourself for your next advancement opportunity when the time comes. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. This is episode 166 of the Mid-Career GPS podcast. I'm your host, John Nerrell. I help mid-career professionals who feel stuck, undervalued, and underutilized show up to find a job they love or love the job they have using my proven four-step formula. It's an exciting week here on the podcast because starting this week, I am now committing to dropping 2 episodes per week. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to episode 165, I talked with you about the importance of having a stretch goal. And in that episode, I talked about why we set stretch goals and why they are vital to our career success and trajectory. And in that episode, I shared with you, I've got a brand new free resource for you. It's called 10 Self-Coaching Questions to help you achieve your stretch goal. You can find that by checking the show notes or visiting my website, johnnerrell.com/resources to enter your email address and get that free download today. So I certainly hope you will check that out. Now, my conversation today with Liesbeth VanderLinden was one that I was really excited to talk to her about because this is all about setting you up for success as you go into that new job. Now, Liesbeth is a global executive coach, author, speaker, and recognized authority in the field of leadership, where she helps high-level leaders with international careers thrive. Liesbeth has coached leaders in over 25 countries and is credited for creating insights that changed their minds for good and expanded them as leaders so they could make a real impact. Her newest book, Connect, Inspire, Grow, the Executive's Framework for the First 100 Days, is a guide for senior leaders in global companies who step into a new role, helping them build the trust that is required to make the changes necessary to create success. Liesbeth and I transition this conversation to specifically help you, the mid-level leader and professional who aspires to be a better leader and elevate to the senior executive level and beyond. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Liesbeth VanderLinden.
Thank you. Well, my name is Liesbeth VanderLinden. I work with expat leaders or expat managers, really people that have been sent abroad for their companies, and I really work with them. I coach them and I consult them to make sure that they're effective in the role that they're in, and often they're high-stake environments, and so it's coaching and consulting that I do. I work with corporates and sometimes train their leaders or their managers. And I do keynotes and workshops on some of the tools that I've developed for the people that I work with.
Very excited to get into this conversation with you today. But as you know, this is the Mid-Career GPS podcast. And so there's a common thread here in terms of what was a defining moment for you in your career. And I'm wondering if you could share with us what you learned from a failed presentation when you were 28.
Ooh, now asking me to share a story that was a bit humiliating for me. But okay, here you go. No, it was a big lesson for me. I was 28 years old indeed. I was in the south of Germany, and I was presenting to a group of German sales representatives and sales leaders. And their average age 45, and there I was a little bit younger. And the context was the sales operations were going to be moved from Germany to my team in the Netherlands. So I was up there, and it was very important for me to present my plans, how I was going to do that, and for me to get their buy-in. And as I was doing this presentation, well prepared, had my nice PowerPoint sheets up, and I was just looking across the room, and I saw from the audience that it didn't land well. I saw that some people were crossed arms, they're exchanging some glances that were like, okay. So I already felt like the energy in the room was not great. So I just went on, and at the end of the conversation, I asked if there were any questions. And then, John, it was silent. And then one after the next started giving me feedback in terms of, this is never going to work. You don't know what the customers want. Everything is different in Germany. So it was all negativity. And I was just there like, oh my God, get me out of here. And I wish I could tell you that I was able to turn this whole meeting around and I got the buy-in in the end, but really that didn't happen. I left the room, tail between my legs, and I went back to my office and just ruminating on what had gone wrong. What was it that, they didn't accept what I was presenting? And in one moment, actually, it was a moment that it suddenly dawned on me, like, hang on, this had nothing to do with my presentation, but everything to do with my skills, my what I saw as lacking leadership skills. Because in my efforts to do well, and I made it all about these plans and strategies and processes and procedures, I overlooked completely the human emotions in the room. Because the people there, they were about to lose a part of their team who they've been working together with for 20 years. So there was sadness, there was upset, there was frustration, there were all kinds of emotions going on. And I just made it all about my plans. I didn't acknowledge it one bit. So that for me was a major lesson that management and leadership is really about the human emotion. And that was a major, major lesson for me, because I was a manager, but I was nowhere a leader. And that's the point that I really started to learn and read and wanted to know everything there was to know about leadership.
Well, first, thank you for being vulnerable with us right out of the gate and sharing that. I know anybody who is listening to this is going to have some type of familiarity with that story, because we've all done a presentation that hasn't gone well. But to your point, it's what happens afterward that shapes us and moves us into whatever is next. And as I've gotten to know you a little bit through some conversations, and of course, I just want to call out and take a moment to celebrate your best-selling book. It is called Connect, Inspire, Grow: The Executive's Framework for the First 100 Days. And when you think about your particular leadership journey, what I understand is that you wrote this book as a guide for senior leaders who are stepping into a new role. And certainly it's a book that is applicable to a lot of leaders in general, but you have this very specific lens on it. For the people who are listening, we've talked before about how they don't want to be stuck. Well, here's the other thing. They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to screw up. From your lens, tell us what you believe is the one mistake senior leaders make in the first 100 days that you wish they wouldn't.
Yeah, and thanks for that question, John. What I see many people do, and it's so natural to us. We want to make progress. We want to, especially in new jobs, we want to impress people. We want results really quickly. So what I see lots of people do, and what I've done in the past as well, and this story is just an example, is we want to get to the end really quickly. So we focus on the what. We focus on making plans. We focus on making strategies, and what, anything that gets us to the results quickly. And particularly when we are stepping into a new role, and even more so when you're in a new organization, if you're focusing too much on the what, and that's what the book is really about, the focus, to shift the focus first on the who. Who are the people that surround you? Who are the people that are going to have an impact on your job, your project, your mission, your assignment, whatever it is that you're out there to do? And not only who will have an impact on your project, but also who will be impacted by your project. So I'd like people to focus on what are the skills and the capabilities of yourself, but also the people around you, and what is lacking, and be very open and honest about it. So to really make sure that you create a network of people as soon as possible that have all the skills and knowledge and expertise around you to get the results in the end. But it is all about the people first before you start making plans. So that is the initial part. And something that just came up, it's if you're focusing on people first, then obviously you need to build trust with people first before they are willing to step onto your train and say, yeah, this is a great idea, we'll do this with you. So that building trust is essential in the first few weeks and months that you're going to learn so many new people.
When you mention about building trust, and admittedly, it's not a new concept because we hear this a lot from people. I'd love for you to dig in a little bit more with us, though, specifically about how do you help leaders build trust with their teams? So to your point about really getting to know the who and where they're good at and where they may need to level up, how do you help your leaders build trust with their teams so their teams are more effective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great point, because building trust, we say, yes, it's essential, but how do you do it, right? And what I see people do when it's quicker to be successful when you use something what I call building professional intimacy. And what that really means is really having a sincere interest in the person, the human being behind the colleague, the team member, the customer, the peer, even your supervisor or your own manager. Really having a conversation, because initially you're going to have lots of conversations, but creating a conversation that has the other person think like, oh, this is a really kind person. This really is somebody that wants to hear my ideas and my views. Creating an atmosphere where people want to open up, because that is essential in terms of getting to the core of what's going on in the organization and in the teams. So in these initial conversation, I always say, okay, focus on 3 points only. There should only be 3 points in the agenda. The first is really get to know the other person. So, and not only about what's your career been like, but also where are you from? How have you been raised? And remember, I'm talking a lot with people that are expats. So they are actually meeting people that come from a different background, had a completely different upbringing in terms of a country where they grew up. So it's really talking about life a little bit. So what were the important points or moments that were essential for you, and what made you choose this career, and all these types of questions that really get a little bit, give you more information than just this is this person in this role, and these are the skills and capabilities that he or she has. So that's the first point. The second point is that you really want to know what they would need, how you could help them. What are their challenges? What are their pain points? What are some things that they are struggling with that you may possibly be able to help them with? So especially when you're talking to new team members and you're the supervisor or the manager, having questions ready like, okay, well, if you would step in my shoes, what would you focus on in the first 100 days? What are things that would really help you in your work, or how would you want to make particular changes? So to really get to how you can help them. The third point is where you turn it around and try to find out what they can do for you. So that's where you share a little bit more about your mission, what your vision is, and how they could help you achieve what you're there to achieve. So, and these aren't really the questions about, okay, how, what is it that you're really good at? What are we looking for in our team? And get them excited as well for what you're trying to do. And so they're really excited to step into on that train with you and to achieve the results that you're looking for.
I just want to pause for a second and acknowledge when you described about building professional intimacy, you walked us through those three key questions. That the thought that came to my mind, Liesbeth, was these are questions that even an extreme introverted leader could ask. You don't have to be this magnanimous personality that starts working with people and leading them and asking questions that you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to take all this time to get to know you. You create a lot of psychological safety in those questions in terms of laying the groundwork and the foundation. It's one of the things I appreciated very much about your book was this kind of step-by-step process and showing how we can build these kind of relationships. So I just want to thank you for framing it that way. You gave us some really great nuggets there.
Yeah, and from what you just said, what's probably important as well is not to pretend that you know it all, because you're new in the organization. The people that you're talking to probably know a lot more than you, although you're there to lead them. So it's this dynamic often, like, okay, do I need to impress them? Do I need to? But it's probably, if you want people to open up, it's you don't have all the answers, and to show them that, to say that, and to really be also transparent about, okay, I'm going to have a lot of conversations the next couple of weeks. That's just for me to, get to know you, get to know all the other people in the organization, and we're going to have a lot of these talks because it's important for me to know what the organization is all about, and you were there to help me with that. So it's really being relatable and being transparent and being the kind of person that they say, okay, well, it's actually quite a nice person to spend time with. That's all.
I want to take this a little step further here because we know there's a lot of excitement in the first 100 days. There's a lot of things to get done. Executives are meeting with people. They're starting to figure out what their plan's going to be or refine a plan in some ways. And as we think about the who, we think about the people on the team and who we're working with. One of the things, especially mid-career professionals hear a lot, is you need to check in with your team. Right? So I'm curious from your point, What are your thoughts on regularly scheduled check-in meetings with your team members, one-on-ones?
One-on-ones. And yeah, I mean, I describe in the book quite a few different type of meetings that you can have with people, but one-on-ones are really important. But there are different reasons why you're having one-on-ones, right? So that could be just to get the progress. How are we doing here? How are we doing there? How are you having any challenges in what we discussed you would do? Do we need to change some agreements? So that's all the work related stuff. But actually, I would always like to at least once a month really just sit down more casually and say, okay, how are things going with you? And not just about the work, but really, okay. And we're now stepping into almost the grow phase already, which we're trying to help people also develop. So it's also that having, so, okay, where are you now and where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself go in let's say, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? And also, where do I see you go? I mean, see if there's any alignment in what we're trying to do together, to achieve together. So it's having those really more task-related one-on-ones, but definitely very regularly have those conversations about, okay, where do we see the organization go? What are your views? What are my views about it? Where do you like to go? Where do you see yourself? And how do I see you? Where can I help you as your manager? And where can you help me? So are there any improvements, any things that we can change for us to work in a way together that's serving you and that's serving me? So it's a bit of a different conversation, but one that is not being held often enough. It's often these midterm reviews or you have yearly reviews, but I would really say have these type of conversations more regularly. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have these conversations and people end up leaving, that's too late. Because often we have exit interviews, remember, like, okay, what's the reason that you were leaving? Yeah, but it's too late. Why would people share that with you? Have these conversations really early. How can we accommodate that, what, to your learning and what you desire to as your next step? How we can help you get there? So yeah, those are conversations to be held.
No, that's great. Can you share with us a story either from, one of your coaching clients or one of your consulting experiences where you particularly saw an executive transform? You saw them level up their leadership in some way that you as their coach, their consultant, just kind of took a step back and went, you rock. You did everything I was hoping you were going to do, kind of a thing.
Those are the moments, like John, like that. You see that happening with your clients. That's really, really so exciting. Yeah, and the first story that comes to mind is of a senior leader. She was working at an international bank. And I remember one of the first sessions, and she came into the session saying, oh my God, a new CEO was appointed. And the first thing he did was he fired my boss. And I don't know what that means for us. I don't know what that means for me. I haven't heard any plans or strategies. Now, I'm about, to meet him next week. I have no idea how to prepare for these kind of meetings. So she was totally stressed out. And what we did together is what I call we shifted gears. And we really, and shifting gears with that, I mean, okay, if the way we think and the way we feel that's determining our actions, is determining our results. So if your mind is in that space of, oh, I don't know what to do, I'm overwhelmed, and the plans, everything's up in the air, and I'm really anxious on what's going to happen, that's not the best place to come from. When we're, meeting somebody for the first time, let alone the new boss, the CEO. So we spent a couple of sessions like, okay, how can we really prepare you for that meeting. And let's just take it from another perspective. What are the, let's say, 3 things that your CEO is challenged by at this moment? What do you think is on his plate? And then we started really brainstorming about, okay, well, he needs to make results quickly. He has to, she came up with all these great ideas, and he needs to get to know the stakeholders. And then we said, okay, well, how can you and your team help him do that? Oh, well, there's a couple of things that we can do. So we really, in that way, set her up from and changed her from being out of control, really not knowing what to do, very stuck, very, all over the place, and worried and concerned about her and her team, to, okay, well, these are points that are really, I feel confident now. I have a list of questions. I can go into that meeting. And so that's the type of work we did. And it was actually last Friday, literally last Friday, she sent me a WhatsApp and she said, well, I got a promotion. I'm now directly reporting into the CEO, and I'm really, really happy with where I am right now. So, those are,
those are fantastic moments when they happen, right? Because we just celebrate our clients and like, yes, good job, congrats. And then we just get to work with them on a completely transformative and different level in that regard.
So, and it's really coming from, I'm about to leave because I don't know what's going to happen and this doesn't feel good, to, man, I really got a promotion. I'm so happy where I am right now. So those are the moments that be really rewarding, and we see people thrive, and that's why we do the work that we do.
Exactly. And it's why in my work, and it's one of the focuses of this podcast, though, is to help mid-career professionals find the job they love or love the job they have. Because sometimes they might admittedly be like, my job sucks right now. But if they ride it out and they have the necessary conversations, they can see that transformation happen exactly within that organization. And to your point, they don't have to leave, or they don't leave in that regard. There was one other thing that came up for me as I was listening to you, and I oftentimes hear from my clients and people with whom I speak with, that they're often having some trouble with their leadership. They'll say things like, my leader is very overwhelmed. My leader is too busy. My leader canceled a check-in meeting again. And the underlying theme here is that they start feeling as if there's a disconnect. From your expertise, what advice would you have for a mid-career professional who's dealing with a leader and perhaps more at that senior executive or even CEO, C-suite kind of level, that they believe they're disconnected from the team and they don't give this mid-career professional any kind of feedback whatsoever? What advice would you have for them?
From the perspective of the manager, right?
The mid-career professional. So they're like, they're not getting anything from their boss, right? What advice would you have for them to help them get the information they need?
Right. Yeah, and I know where we've all been there, that you want that connection with your boss, and it's not always working. And these people are busy, so it's very hard to get a moment of their time. But I would, in terms of advice, if you feel that disconnect, because once you're disconnected, then that's a problem, because then you're more focused on yourself and no longer on building the connection. So I would always try to continue that connection in one way or another, but open up in terms of, okay, how can I help you? Not what is my problem, I want you to solve it, but obviously there's a lot going on. I'm here, to support you in what you've got going on. How can I help you? And it's not always easy to get a hold of these managers, but if there is a chance, I would have that one-on-one conversation. If you see it's happening all over, if you see that everybody has that problem, and some leaders are like that. Some leaders, and I've seen it happen as well. I've actually won example of somebody who stepped into a project which was gotten off track, and this was somebody who was an expertise. It was an engineer, and he was a good project manager in the past, and he was put on this project. And he said, well, if I need to do this project well, I need to know all there is to know about this project. So he actually locked himself up in his office and went through all the history of this project and wanted to learn all the single. But all the while he was doing that, his team didn't get any guidance. They were waiting for him to lead them, but nothing was happening. The leadership and the clients was seeing no progress. So there was a disconnect. So no trust was built. So I give you this example to see, because some leaders are so focused on themselves that they forget that there's a team out there. So if you see that this disconnect is not just with you, but you see it with the whole team, that's something that is kind of a red flag for me. If there's no connection built with any of the team members, then this is something to be raised on a higher level or with HR. But if you feel it's just you, then I would just try to keep that conversation, try to open up and try to help the leader and see if you can find something that you can help them with.
I appreciate that. We talk about using the word help a lot in our mid-career conversations, right? Both with the people they're managing as well as managing up in that regard. So thank you for reiterating that concept as well. I appreciate it. Liesbeth, we're going to start wrapping up here, but before we close out our conversation today, what advice would you have for somebody listening to help them build their mid-career GPS today?
Oh, I love that GPS, because with GPS, it suggests that people know when they're off track. When you wake up on a Monday morning and you just don't feel like, starting the week, you're already, your energy is low, you just don't feel that you're happy or you're contributing anything, then that you feel that your GPS is off track. When you wake up, instead, and you're happy and you're going to be working on some exciting projects, and you're all, happy with where you are right now, you're on track. So like we do with our car that's gone off track, if you bring it into the garage, they can help fix it and align it again. And that's what I was thinking as well when we're talking about the GPS is, how can you find either in your support system or in somebody you know very well and trust very well that can give you honest feedback, whether it's a coach or a mentor or a very good friend or a colleague? How can you have that conversation to really check in, like, okay, if I'm not on the right track, what changes can I make? Is it me? Is it my environment? Is it because often people think it's the environment, but there are a couple of things that we can do to look different to our environment as well. But somebody who can give you feedback, somebody in your support system, and have that conversation like, okay, what can I do from here? And I think when your GPS is off, people have that inner knowing, that gut feeling, like, is there something that I can still do? Or is it something that it's just time for me to move on? So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That conversation. Yeah.
I appreciate our conversation so much. And I want to thank you for sharing some really great leadership and, as you described it, building professional intimacy. It was one of my big takeaways from our conversation today. Liesbeth, if people want to connect with you further, they want to get your book, they want to learn more about you, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you right now. Share all of the details and the great things about how people can connect with you.
All right, John, thank you. Well, my company is called GLTD. So my website is gltd.co, no m.co. And I guess that's where you can read about the book. You can order the book through there. That's where my leadership programs are. These are my coaching programs are on there. That's where I have the topics that I have keynotes and speeches on. So yeah, I guess the website is the best place. And if you want to get a hold of the book, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles have it on stock. So that's a way as well to learn more about the framework that I use with leaders who start their first 100 days in a new role.
I will make sure all of that is in the show notes. Liesbeth VanderLinden, thank you so very much for being a wonderful guest today on the Mid-Career GPS podcast.
John. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Same. All right, my friends. So here's the big takeaway from today's conversation. You may not be in this CEO role yet, but having people in your network like Liesbeth and reading her book and figuring out your GPS to get you to the C-suite is exactly one of the reasons why you're listening to today's conversation. You can level up your leadership right now. You can take some of the things that we've talked about today and use them to build better relationships with your team. And I'm going to steal part of the title from Liesbeth's book. It is about connecting, inspiring, and growing. The relationships you have with your team, the relationships you have with your leadership as you build your GPS to whatever is next for you and your career. If you enjoyed this episode, kindly share it with someone. We'd both certainly appreciate that. And then, my friends, until next time, remember this. We build our mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how we show up matters. Make it a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Mid-Career GPS podcast. Make sure to follow on your favorite listening platform. And if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your comments on Apple Podcasts. Visit johnneral.com for more information about how I can help you build your mid-career GPS, or how I can help you and your organization with your next workshop or public speaking event. Don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on social at John Neral Coaching. I look forward to being back with you next week. Until then, take care, and remember, how we show up matters.